Okay, so you guys might remember from last week that the topic I'm dealing with is the awesomely controversial issue of sexuality and specifically sexual orientation and its relationship to our public schools. There are a number of reasons why I chose this topic. The first and foremost being that I'm very passionate about gay rights issues because I truly believe that this is the civil rights issue of our generation and that we should all really care about it. Also, there are a couple of recent events that really sort of brought this idea to our attention. The first was this outbreak of sort of media coverage of the suicides of a large number of young queer youth. And the sort of backlash to that, which also really caught my attention, was this Don't Say Gay legislation that they've been trying to pass in states like Missouri and Tennessee. This legislation says that no teacher in any school can talk about any orientation other than heterosexual under any context. And this sort of really struck me because it really pointed out the relationship between our schools and this problem that we're all witnessing. So I thought, let's look into how we can use schools as a positive force, because in general, people thought that this Don't Say Gay legislation was the wrong way to go about doing things. So I decided to try to understand this problem a little bit better from two angles. First, I wanted to get really up close and personal and sort of see how the victims and their families and parents saw the issue, and then sort of take a step back and look at how academics and the media was covering these issues. So the first thing I did was I watched as many interviews as I could find that related to these troubled kids. And one thing I found that was overwhelming was that the communication that came from all of the victims was pretty much standard. They all said that they didn't know how to handle what was happening, they didn't feel supported, and they felt alone. Regardless of whether or not their families seemed supportive and seemed to be listening to their kids, they felt alone. The parents and the families were also saying some very similar things. They didn't know how to handle the situation, they didn't understand what their kid was going through, and that they felt that they were advocating for a larger problem by talking to the media. So I said, this is definitely a larger problem, and let's see what academics are saying from further back. And I found a number of overwhelming sort of universal ideas that I wasn't really expecting. And first of all was that a lot of people did think that the school held some responsibility, that it is part of the school's responsibility to raise stable and able citizens, and that kids who are feeling alone and suicidal aren't prepared to deal with what life is going to give them. And that I also discovered something very surprising, which was that a couple of very important and relevant entities, including the National Education Association for Health Information Network, had created this list and chart of all of the different things that kids should be learning in their sexuality education by certain ages. And it included that 5th graders should know the definition of sexual orientation and be able to point out adults who they can talk to about these issues. And while this is great, nobody's really paying attention to it. And a lot of studies show that this school-based intervention is very effective in helping with this problem. So the conclusion that I came to is that while a lot of people believe that issues of sexuality and sexual orientation are very personal and really none of the school's business, and that it should be dealt with by families and communities aren't dealing with it, and that's the problem. So it's time that we step in, and the problem is significant enough, and intervention is effective enough that we should absolutely be instituting it. And the argument that I'm aiming to make is that sexuality should be as vital a part of our education as math and reading and all of the other things, because what good is it if a kid can read a book and do a math problem if they don't feel like they have a reason to live? Thanks.
Thank you, Emma. So, a couple of things that you admired about Emma's presentation. Yes, Hassan.
The conclusion I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
really good.
And what was good? Like,
I mean, the build up to it, but also the fact that, like, I mean, the last line, or like, what good is it if they can do a problem if they don't have a reason to live? Like, that's just obviously, like, a big problem.
Yeah.
I think it's a powerful way to end.
yeah, it's a nice way to like leave us with the biggest idea and the most eloquent phrasing of it. You want to put that at the beginning. Again, leave us with that. Yes.
Overall, you were just really enthusiastic, and that showed through your tone variation, which
Yes.
was really good.
Yeah, a great tonal variation, a lot of amplitude, right? Between the highs and the lows, right? Great, that's a nice contrast. Yes, Tracy?
The gestures are very emphatic and match the energy of the whole presentation.
Yeah, emphatic, I like that word, emphatic gestures. Perhaps suited to the material.
It's like for a lot of other presentations, it would be too much or unnecessary, but it kind of matched everything else.
Yeah, it's appropriate for the subject matter and the tone stance that was being adopted here. Yeah, Eric?
Also with the gestures, I really liked when you said like we need to take a step back, and you took a step back. I thought that was so cool.
So the way she was able to underscore, content.
Like it didn't even look like it was planned. She just stepped back. Like something so simple. But
It
it's
seemed
so
very
cool.
natural.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like, staged. Yeah.
Also, going along with all of that, I thought your facial expression was very good the whole time, and the fact that it matched what you were saying, and you varied it, but it was also like concerned. It's a very serious issue, but not too serious. Just very like you taught us very well.
Yeah, really. It's kind of like the whole strong connection with audience through the facial expression. Strong connection as opposed to weak connection, right? So I think we felt that through Emma's facial expression. Yeah.
I just like the logical flow. I just knew, we all knew where you were going. It was, I'm going to look at it from this stance, and then I finished talking to you about that stance. Now here's the other stance I'm looking at, and now here's my conclusion. This is where it just made a
Transition language. That doesn't just happen. The flow, that was a great flow. Emma was really able to sort of articulate, right? So now it moves my conclusion. I mean, more eloquent than that. But yeah, she was able to phrase, right, the direction, indicate the direction of her narrative through transition signposting. Anybody else? Yes?
Yeah, it was super conversational, like
Yes.
very accessible presentation.
Yeah, very conversational. Good. Yes, last word, sir.
Also connecting with the audience, like again, where she said like this is a civil rights issue of our generation. I feel like that we need to do this. So.
Okay, so yeah, this sort of the pathos, this emotional kind of call to action. Yeah. Oh, Nikki, yeah.
I guess just one more thing is, what I really noticed, some people stand up there and it seems like they feel bad that they're like only talking and no one's responding, but it just seemed like you were so comfortable up there. Like, I didn't even notice as a one-way, it's kind of one way, but at the same time it just seemed like it's so comfortable. I don't know, she was very comfortable up there.
Very comfortable. Okay. She kind of owned the space, the stage, the moment. Good. Okay. Now, as much as all the adulatory things that we have to say, we'll transition a couple of things that we felt like could stand to be worked on. Any suggestions for Emma? Yes.
So I definitely felt like the passion and the frantic quality of the issue, but sometimes I felt like you talked a little too fast. Sometimes I was just like, wait, what? Kind of like work really hard, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but.
Okay. What did people feel about the pace? Was it? Yeah,
I think like sometimes it's really good, but other times you could slow down and then like that would make the parts where you like it would play off of each other kind of. It's like when you slow down, we'll pay attention. When you get faster, like we'll pay attention too. It's like there's a change there. But like I agree with Stephanie that sometimes it was a bit too fast.
Mm-hmm. So variation by slowing down, you can emphasize certain kinds of or frame certain things. Yeah.
Yeah, just one more thing. I think that the gestures were great, and I would just be careful if like verging on a little too much. Like one time I noticed you used your fingers to list things out, which was great, and then you used your fingers again, but it was like less of a list.
Okay.
And so I felt like the first time, the first time it was about the victims and their families and their parents, and then the second time it was just like kind of two things. So I just felt like the first one would have been kind of more powerful if you hadn't used the second one because it was more of a list.
Yeah, I think that the general idea that people are getting to is, we don't want you to lose your, like, the energy and, like, the great, connection you're making with us. And, we feel hesitant maybe to suggest, pulling back on certain things, but it may serve, as Laura and Hassan were saying. So Laura is like, the gestures, maybe a little, how would you say it, Laura?
Like a little, I think maybe just more purposeful in some areas.
Yeah, more purposeful. Yes, Ellen?
I think in general your posture was really good, but you were swaying a little bit.
That bugaboo. Maybe as collectively as a class, that would be one of our, stop swaying. Yes, Hector?
I think eye contact's over a little bit by having the notes on the table. I feel like she's looking down a lot.
Okay. Notes. If possible, we will speak without that kind of help. But if you're going to do it, I think it was done as skillfully, the two people who had to do it. Yeah.
Just to add to the notes part, I think that you had really good eye contact with that side of the room. I think that what happened was that you were looking at the notes on your left, and then you would look up to the right. So maybe just try to stay conscious that regardless of where the notes are, even if you're looking to the left, you haven't necessarily looked at us yet. But I thought that you made great eye contact with the right side of the room. It was just this side that suffered a little bit.
Okay. Last word, Austin?
I thought maybe in certain spots you could have been a little bit more serious since the topic you're addressing is really grave. That just might add a little bit more power.
So moments of gravitas, you're saying? Or when you say seriousness?
Yeah, your conclusion was brilliant. And I think it made a really powerful point, but it could have been a little bit more gravely said or something like that to really send the point.
And there's no question that Emma's occupying this really forceful range of address, and people I think have mentioned things in terms of variation, purposefulness, slight modulation in tone, but really impressive, really forceful, eloquent talk. Good stuff. So our last but not least. Thank you, Emma. Maybe we can pass our stuff back to Emma so we don't get lost in the Okay, so we have our Austin material.
Oh, great.
Kind of drafted you. Okay, so whenever you're ready.